Cool.
Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast today is Jonathan Higgs, and Jonathan is the frontman and lead singer of the band Everything Everything. Jonathan, it's great to get you on the Godcast. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, we've got lousy weather here in mid-October in Burnley. Whereabouts are you today?
I'm in Stockport,
Oh,
so just as bad.
Not far away. Yeah, yeah.
No, not.
So you're from the northeast. Is that right? Is that right, Jonathan?
I was born in Newcastle. Yeah. I've lived in Manchester now for just slightly longer than half my life. So I guess I'm now a Manc, but call me what you will. I don't sound like it. I'm from Newcastle. I'm just from the north.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because we kind of refer to ourselves as Northerners. Do you think there's much of a difference between Newcastle and Manchester?
Yes, but not that. I mean, the UK is so ridiculously varied from like village to village. You, if you were foreign and you came to both, you'd think they were exactly the same, shall we say? But obviously, we think there's loads and loads of differences, imperceptible differences. The weather's much worse up there, despite the reputation Manchester has.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself Geordie, or are you an adopted Manc? What do you kind of think about in those terms?
I honestly don't know. I kind of don't know. I don't think it's up to me because it's really how other people view me. I think of myself as just being a northerner, I guess you would say. But I mean, my heart does beat when I see something to do with Newcastle. But I don't know. I look out for Manchester as well now. When it's on the international stage, for example, I'm like, oh yeah, Manchester.
Yeah. And as a kid growing up, what was the music scene like up there? Was it quite vibrant? Were there bands that you were noticing, or were you looking further afield for your musical influences?
The scene in Newcastle wasn't really great at all. And it still struggles. I mean, they don't have the infrastructure that somewhere like Manchester does. Manchester's just kind of set up for it so well. The history it's got, obviously, of bands, the venues, the whole setup really is ready for bands, basically. Newcastle doesn't have it, unfortunately. There are some great bands that come from there, and Sunderland, but no, it doesn't have the same vibe at all, unfortunately. We often thought that that would happen, but it just, I don't know, maybe it's happened and I haven't noticed since.
Yeah. And I've been listening to your band quite a lot over the last few days, and you're very unique, I would say. But who were your influences as a kid then? Who are you listening to?
Like everyone, it was the Beatles. I think they're a really good band for children, actually. That's often overlooked. I think they're really creative. Oh, of course, they're creative. They're really sort of colorful, I think, for children. They're so varied song to song and very approachable, but there's complexity. We all know about the Beatles, obviously. So more interesting ones, I guess. My parents listened to Simon and Garfunkel a lot. The vocal harmonies that they do is something that's definitely had a big influence on me. And they were really into this band, the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, who were kind of surreal 70s or 60s, kind of like Monty Python almost, but right. Music. And they never really crossed over into the mainstream, but they're like a huge cult band. And there's a lot of humor in that. And a lot of just weird stuff happens, but in quite an approachable sort of format. So I think that had a bigger influence on me than I realized. And then later it was, Nirvana, like everybody. They're not that crazy, basically. Radiohead. If you sing high, I probably listen to you. And then latterly, I really liked the sort of American R&B world of things like Destiny's Child, R. Kelly, although I'm not allowed to listen to him anymore.
I know, it's a huge disappointment, isn't it? I used to like R. Kelly, and you know, you think, oh crikey, we can't go there anymore, which is a shame. But and what about your voice? When did you realize that you had a talent to sing? You know, was this through school days, or was it at college, or when were you aware of the potential of your voice?
Not for a long time. I sang in the choir at school, but I was a bass, and I was in bands all through school. From about 13 onwards, I had a band, but I was an absolutely terrible singer. Some may say I still am, but even right through uni, I was just shit, basically. But I was really ambitious in what I was trying to sing, which was part of the problem. Trying to sing really high, really fast and stuff like this. And I guess I slowly, because I did this thing where when I came to a high note, I would just sing it falsetto so I could get the note and move on. Look at me with my trump hands. And but then I didn't really care about keeping it consistent. So I would sing a melody in my regular voice, and then there'd be a high note. I'd just go to falsetto. I know it's not that weird, but I would do it so much that I got really good at doing that little switch. And then I found that people really liked that about the way I was singing. And it sort of became the way I naturally sing everything is to do this sort of in and out technique. And then obviously my voice did get better and better as time went on, to the point where I didn't really have to do the technique anymore. But I enjoy it, and I think people like it. So I sort of fell into it by accident. I never had any proper training. It was just sort of absolute trial and error, years and years of just kind of going, I don't care if I'm shit, I'm going to sing this.
Yeah.
The kind of Billy Corgan approach, I think.
Yeah. And what about writing? Were you writing as well from a young age? When did you kind of get the bug for that? Was that an early thing as well?
Yeah, that was like 13, 14, pretty much as soon as I heard Nirvana and I realized that you could play, 2 or 3 notes. It didn't matter. It didn't have to be the Beatles, although they obviously have that side to them as well. So yeah, as soon as I could play one string on a guitar, I was writing songs, and they just went from there. But that's just 20 odd years of that now. It mounts up.
Yeah. And as a young guy, I'm thinking when I was a kid, which is years ago, there's all that angst and testosterone running through your veins, isn't there? What were you writing about, John? Were you quite a philosophical young man? Were you religious in any way? What were you thinking about?
I was very, I definitely wanted the lyrics always from day one to be quite serious and deep. I remember I had this song, I played it to my mum, the recording of it. I didn't perform it. And it had this line about sound the horn and let's bring down the hunt, or something like that. And she was like, what's that mean, Jonathan? And I was like, oh, that's because I hate hunters, or something like that. And she was like, oh, very deep, very deep. And I remember her saying that and thinking, oh, right, is she taking the piss out of me? I don't really know. But that was when I was like 14 or whatever. So it was definitely always trying to be thoughtful. Certainly, I didn't really have a stupid period. Although we did have one song in my first band called George, and it was just like me talking over the top of this really stupid song about this guy called George and what happens to him.
Yeah. And what about religion, John? Was religion part of your life growing up, or did you give it much thought? Or has it ever been on your agenda?
Yeah, certainly gave it thought. My mum's sort of reasonably religious, comes and goes. I think my dad isn't at all. I don't think I ever had a period where I was. I can remember having a sort of epiphany, excuse the term, when I was about maybe 15, 16, about the whole thing, really, and just kind of going, there isn't anything there, and feeling very proud of myself for figuring it out in that teenage way. And I wouldn't say I've come back on that, but I think a young person can often be quite, quite mean to believers if they aren't one themselves. And I think I've come back on that a hell of a way. There was a time where I was a pretty horrible atheist, and I'm not like that now. But I wouldn't say my faith has ever, flared up ever. Really.
It's quite interesting because I spoke to quite a few atheists on the Godcast, and most of them like to kind of reiterate the point that I'm not a full-on kind of, I think you're all absolute arseholes. There seems to be a sympathy there and still an inquisitive nature, even though they proclaim to be atheists, which is quite interesting. And yeah, go on, Jonathan. Were you going to say something?
No, I've instantly forgotten what I was going to say.
I was when I was looking you up, kind of described as an art band, and I was wondering about that. I was like, I love my music. I was thinking about art bands. I suppose I'm probably a bit older than you, but the one that kind of Kraftwerk come to mind for me as an art band, and maybe Sparks, and I'm a huge Depeche Mode fan, Jonathan, and their visuals are incredible, with a guy called Anton Corbijn who kind of turns the music into something else. How important is that side of the band? Is that for you as the artists?
Visual side. Oh yeah, hugely. We were right now we're actually talking a lot about presenting ourselves in a certain way, and we go pretty hard when it comes to that. We talk about it and we try stuff out hugely, because it's all the great bands that I consider great have a good idea about visuals, basically, from Queen to Radiohead, obviously the Beatles, and it's ones that don't care about it, say Oasis, that you puts them in a different type of category, I would say. Not that they're not a great band, but I don't consider them in the same way. So yeah, we do absolutely go really hard. I've always made, not entirely, but I've made about 90% of our videos ever. I've directed them, or sometimes just made them from nothing. And that's been a pretty good, given us a really good connection to it ourselves, because we're the creators. So the next thing we're looking at is doing artwork ourselves now, producing ourselves now. So that's kind of like the final step.
And where do you get the inspiration for that? Is it something you contemplate over a long period of time, or do you just kind of think, wow, this is what I need to do? I've watched some of your videos are really visually interesting, and I think, well, they make me think, and I like music that makes me think, that rather than just kind of give me all the answers. I like ambiguity behind songs. And is that intentional with what you do?
Oh, definitely. Got to keep a good few layers of mystery. Just got to get the right amount. That's the thing. The longest running conversation that we have as a group of friends in the band is sort of where we draw the line between comprehensibility and art or mystery, and walking that balance. And sometimes we tip too far into making things too obvious. Sometimes we tip the other way. So that's completely ongoing. And I think that's probably the same for all bands, really, all artists, really. But yeah, it never ends. Just when you think you know your audience, they'll surprise you, or they might not get something, or they hone in on something you never intended. That kind of thing that you can't predict is interesting.
And does that apply to your bandmates as well? Do they sometimes go, oh my goodness, where is Jonathan taking us with this? You know, or do you kind of give them a clear, you know, I like you, I know what you said there about the layers behind the music, but you know, as a band, are you all on the same page, I suppose, in terms of where it's going?
No, we're not at all. Because a hell of a lot of the time, I mean, I write the lyrics. I don't necessarily write the music. Alex writes a lot of music now. And sometimes he'll present me with a song and say, John, can you sing something on top of this? And then I'll sing something, and then 3 weeks later, you know, give him the demo back, and then he'll go, actually, John, I was thinking about a mining disaster in Wales when I wrote this. And I'll be like, I've just written loads of lyrics about, you know, my sister's baby. And then he's like, yeah, but do you think you could maybe, you know, make it a bit more about the Welsh mine? And just, you know, that's not quite the example, but it's like that. Or I'll write a load of lyrics and I'll think they're fucking great. And then Mike will come up to me a few days later and say, John, what the hell does this mean? Or I really like that song you've written about, and he'll just come out with something completely different. And sometimes I will explain myself, and sometimes I just don't want to, or I can't, or sometimes it doesn't mean anything, something I've written, a line here or there, or it's like a joke and I don't want to tell them that it's just a joke, you know. And all these things combine and recombine when you've got four people with four sets of ideas and 12 years of history in the band, and all the things we've done before, and it gets ever more complex, the type of decisions we have to make.
Yeah. And do you enjoy that creative process? Is it part of the you know, I mean, I suppose as fans, you know, I just want Depeche Mode to rock up every year, really, and with something new. But I understand there's a process to that. Do you enjoy that kind of beginning of a project? And does that normally start with you saying, right, I'm going to go writing? And how long would you commit to that period as well?
Well, I enjoy aspects of it. I like the blank slate, but sometimes it's very daunting, especially when you feel like you've just, like your last record was like the best thing you're ever going to do, especially when it's like that. So I'd say that the greatest joy in my job is that moment where you've just written something new before you show it to anyone, and it's just yours and the universe's. That's an exquisite joy. You can't really, doesn't feel like anything else to create and know it's good, or at least you think it's good. So I love the moment of creation, but I despise everything that comes after. So showing it to anyone, hearing what they think about it, changing it, refining it, explaining it, recording it. Like there's a thing that you'll get with bands called demo-itis, where it's a disease of the mind where you fall in love with a demo and then you go to the studio to do it for real, and you're like, it's not as good as a demo, it's not as good as a demo, and you haven't sung it like you sung it on the demo. And that strikes a lot, especially the longer the gap is between writing it and recording it. You'll get demo-itis bad. And there's four of us all getting demo-itis for different things, you know, so it gets crazy. And I dislike all that. But when it's all done and it's like release day, and it's like, look at how fucking great this is. Like, we worked so hard on that and that and that, and look how good the lyrics are, and listen to how fucking good I am at singing this, and listen to Mike on this track, and then look at this fucking video, and it's all there and it's all done. That feels amazing. And so does going out on tour. So having the moment of creation is great. The moment where it's all done is great. Everything else in between is kind of torturous.
When you've written a track and you kind of think, oh, this is just brilliant, do you share it quite quickly, or do you discipline yourself enough to say, I need to put that in the drawer for a week or two before I reveal it to anybody else?
A day or two at most, I would say. I usually can't wait, but sometimes I'll send them to like someone who isn't in the band, maybe, so I don't have to get, because we've been doing it so long in the band, it's unusual that someone will respond with like, oh my God, this is the best thing. They'll be like, yeah, it's great. Maybe we could try this, you know, because it's work.
Mm.
And so if I just for once, you know, once in a while, I just want someone to just like, oh my God, that is amazing. Then I send it to someone outside the band, for example, get that initial reaction, like a fan reaction. And then I get like a colleague reaction after that.
And those gaps in between albums and new material, do you enjoy that time? You know, I mean, I can't help think. Well, I'm thinking, what are these guys doing? I need more music. I need more music. But do you enjoy that downtime? Do you use it wisely or just chill out? What do you kind of do with it?
No, I don't use it wisely at all. It tends to be one way or another. We're already working on the next thing. I mean, downtime at the moment, it doesn't really exist because you're either promoting singles, which effectively for me means making videos, or you're on tour, or you're back in the cycle and you're writing again. So it may appear like downtime, but really it's probably writing that we're doing or touring that we're doing. But touring's been completely messed up by the pandemic. So we had to do the other one, which is right.
Yeah. And I just want to ask about producers. You do, and obviously you're obviously kind of sounds a bit ridiculous to say you're hands-on. When you're in the band, of course you're hands-on, but some people are happy to hand their music over to production and producers who kind of mold it and gel it. Where are you as a band with that? Do you like to keep that overall control, or do you like a producer coming in and saying, have you thought about this or that?
I kind of like the idea of it more than I like the reality of it. I haven't honestly enjoyed working with producers most of the times we've had them. Not that it's a miserable time or they're not being nice people. It's just I've got my own thoughts about how things should be, and Alex has got his, and he's way more into production than I am, I think, and obviously the other guys do as well. And it's like we're a bit sort of overqualified, I think, in lots of ways in this group, and that's sometimes is cause for things not going smoothly, because we all, unfortunately or fortunately, do know quite a lot about music and production and things like this, and we all think we know best. And there's 4 of us, you know, so it can get sticky, you know, because the best thing a producer can do is just be decisive. When we're left to our own devices, that's when things really get bogged down, because we all are producers in our heads. However, we are now at the stage where we're going producer free and we are doing it ourselves. So that's pretty exciting. Alex is producing the record that we're thinking about making, shall we say.
And you've been together a long time, haven't you? And you've had that consistency. You know, some bands kind of break up and have a fallout and a tiff and come back together, but you've been pretty consistent. Is that down to kind of just friendship, or just kind of that musical connection?
It's a few things. I think we had our fallout before the band started. We did have another member before the band, before anyone knew who we were, shall we say, before us wrote. And that was kind of the drama. And then after that, it's been smooth sailing. So I think we were lucky to kind of get that done, because that was the kind of thing that would have destroyed a band later on. So that was, I guess, lucky in a way. But yeah, I think we're pretty well suited to our roles. One of the main problems that occurs in bands that split up is people sort of encroaching on each other or trying to be in charge of everything, you know, the usual stuff that destroys any community ego, really. And I think I have an ego, but I also know that I'm not very good at quite a lot of stuff. And I think that goes for all of us. And we're pretty good at the things that we're good at. And luckily, there isn't a huge amount of overlap. So Alex and I will write music. Mike and Jeremy just don't write music, and they're totally cool with that. I think you'll get, that doesn't always happen. You know, you'll get the drummer wants his song on the next record, and those kind of tensions just haven't arrived for us. And we're quite self-sufficient, so I can produce videos, which is lucky. You know, we all have a good head on our shoulders when it comes to our roles, I think, and we're not too precious about it.
Yeah. and as you reflect on the career with the band today, are you content with your lot today? I mean, obviously you're still a relatively young guy, and there's much to come, but are you pleased how it's panned out for you as a band?
No, we should be way bigger, obviously.
Jonathan, can I ask you about that though? Because yeah, I get that, you know, and I had a really good chat with Rick Witter from Shed 7 about, you know, kind of popularity and things like that, but you wouldn't compromise your musical integrity to be more popular, would you?
I think I would. Yeah, and I think I do. I think if Jonathan from our first record heard our last one, he'd be like, what the hell is this crap? And if I had a conversation with him, it would probably be an argument. But there comes a line where I don't even think it's good. It's a tricky thing, because I'll listen to very pop a lot of the time, actually, probably most of the time. And I sit down and write a song, and I think I want this could be sung by, I don't know, Ariana Grande, and it would be number one. This is what I'm trying to write right now. And I'm going to produce it in that way. I'm not even going to try and subtly change it. I'm just going to do the thing. And it still comes out weird. And as soon as I sing on it, obviously it's not going to number one, but it's, no, I mean, the question of would I debase myself and write like pure pop? It's like, yeah, I've been trying to do that since like our second record. Please, can I be more like that? But it just doesn't happen, because people view us in a certain way. And you could probably transplant one of our songs and put it on someone else's record, and no one would notice that it was us, if you know what I mean. They would just think, oh yeah, that's Sam Smith being a pop star. It's interesting. I think it's about perception, and we built up a certain reputation that, you know, we're a kind of Mercury style band, and we're a bit sort of nerdy and stuff. But if you actually analyze the music, it's no more complex than what's considered like very pop. It's weird. It's one of those things. And sometimes really pop is actually complex as anything. It's kind of how it's being perceived, by how it's presented, more than anything.
But you are popular. I mean, you might not be selling out Wembley Stadium, but you have it. It seems you've got a very good fan base that love what you do and will come and see you. You know, kind of a bit similar to bands like Shed 7. You know, and you know, and I was wondering, does that evolve as well? You know, do you attract? I went to Tramlines this year and purposely wanted to go and watch bands I'd not seen before, and I was just blown away by the quality of the music. Do you find that young guys are still interested, come and see you? Do you find new fans coming to everything?
Yeah, I am always surprised to see young, like 18-year-olds, whatever, at our gigs. In fact, we've always had, strangely, we've had like a following of like little kids, particularly on our third record, that seemed to resonate with like under 10s in a big way. I don't really know why, but I'm certainly not complaining. I think if a band gets into you at that age, it really does change your life, which is awesome. And maybe some of those kids are old enough to come to shows now. But I also think, yeah, we do still attract young'uns. Once we see the age of the crowd start to go up, that's probably when we're we've made us the wrong step, I think.
Yeah. And just to talk about the business side of it briefly, I mean, I don't mean to be crass, but I was reading about Spotify, and these people who are being challenged to change their ways and make music more profitable for artists. It's quite tough, isn't it? If you're a new band to actually to earn a living, it's pretty tough, isn't it?
I dread to think what goes on in those situations. I mean, obviously, I know 3 or 4 very young bands because I tend to latch on to one a year for some reason and go, right, I'm just going to get obsessed with them. And I don't know how the hell they make it work. I really don't. I mean, things were bad enough when we were starting out in the MySpace era, just before streaming broke. We never really had we never really had a CD album, shall we say. Man Alive was on iTunes and it just went from there. But at least you paid for stuff on iTunes on that record. From then it just went free, and you don't make money from music. You, like, full stop, you don't make money from music. You do make money from playing live. But if you can't do that, like you can't right now, then yeah, full stop. There's nothing else. So yeah, it can get pretty tough, especially if you're starting out. I do not know how. People often ask me, like, what advice would you give bands starting out, and I just don't know how to answer it. Like, be extremely lucky, have good music, get out there, just meaningless stuff, because there is nothing to say. I don't know what to say. Like, the internet's full, music is full. We there's no space for us. There's no space. No one has the attention span. People will play one song off your record and then they'll play another person. Everything is. We've got so used to the format of the vinyl record whenever it was invented, and the 45 minutes of music that you listen to and then you take it off your record player. That's just gone. It's meaningless.
Well, I've got my old vinyl here, and
it's because you're old school. Although it is kind of back in a little way. But if you zoom out and look at the history from, say, 400 years in the future, like, they figured out how to record stuff in like 1880 or whatever, and then Elvis happened. We had youth culture and we had pop music, and for this weird time, say 1950 to 2010, humans listened to 50 minutes of music and then they stopped. Like, what? That's just a complete anomaly. But to us, it's like that. No, but that's right. That's what it should be. And it's the same with film. It's like, how long is an attention span? Is it 90 minutes? Is it 2 hours? Is it, for some reason, 45 minutes when it comes to music? There's all these weird stipulations that we think are kind of correct, but they're just nonsense. And some of them are getting stripped away now with streaming and with the way people the way people consume media is to just pick a little bit here and there, like a huge tapas or something.
Yeah,
it's the best.
It's so interesting that, because I've got teenage daughters and we both love music, and I constantly say, you need to get into an album. You need to understand that it's a song within the context of all the other songs. And then, I was just chatting to my daughter the other day. She was talking about the last Arctic Monkeys album. She didn't like it when it came out. Now she loves it. And I said, that's because these albums are there for an indefinite period of time. I love going back to some old albums and rediscovering new rhythms or whatever, and just thinking, wow, this is just powerful. But I think music's being lost in schools in many ways, particularly, I go into primary schools, so you don't see an awful lot of music knocking about, which is a shame. Do you ever go right back, Jonathan?
Like teach?
Yeah, in terms of, like things like you said, you're in the choir. Some schools don't have choirs anymore.
Yeah, well, I was in a musical school, I'd say, and I had a really good music teacher, Mr. Young, and he made the choir. He really pushed that choir to do some crazy shit for a high school choir, like weird time signatures and parts that we just couldn't sing. You know, he was really ambitious, and he would write these. He wrote his own Odysseus, and it was performed once. You know, just mental. So yeah, I think I was lucky, and I was just at the right time to get taught a new AS level called Music Tech, which prior to that didn't exist. I think we were the first year to do it, which was a godsend. That taught me so much about how to record stuff and using computers to make music. And yeah, I kind of haven't been into any school since I left school, although my mum's a teacher, but yeah, I just don't know what the crack is now. I feel maybe I was part of a generation that had it good when it comes to music. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, Jonathan, it's been absolutely great chatting to you. I love chatting music. You got gigs coming up, haven't you? They're in the new year. Yeah, you're looking forward to that?
Yeah, I mean that's a tour that should have happened in like March 2020. No, probably earlier than that. It was earlier than that. And now it's happening April 22. Yeah. So yeah, it will be nice to play a proper tour.
Yeah. And ticket sales doing well. People can still get tickets. Yeah.
People are still a little bit hesitant, but I think once we get through this winter, it'll be go, hopefully, or it'll be everything is closed and everyone's dead.
Yeah, well, let's just keep our fingers crossed. And I really appreciate talking to you. Like I say, I love chatting music, and I'm going to keep listening to everything. It's a band that's new to me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So all the best from Burnley down the M66 down to Stockport M60. And say, Jonathan, thanks for coming on the Godcast. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.